For thousands of years in a galaxy far, far away, movies have made us laugh, made us cry, made us feel extremely awkward
when watching that sex scene with our parents.
Let's all talk about films with a few guys you could just chill with. If you find a plot hole, they'll fill it right here on BRB Flix. Flix is a podcast for the silver screen. Yoshi rage quits while Jitterbug screams. Dave tries in vain to steer this machine, but the show digresses like it has ADD.
Welcome back to the exciting conclusion of the Goodfellas BKR. Hopefully this will be the conclusion. Good God. Can't go on anymore.
Speaking of which, it was supposed to be called Wise Guys, because you never hear mobsters actually call each other Goodfellas. It was supposed to be Wise Guys. The book is called Wise Guys, but
there's already a movie. There's already a movie comedy.
Well, that doesn't matter.
Well, they didn't want to do. Scorsese didn't want to do that. That's what IMDb is telling me.
Gotcha.
And that's an unimpeachable source, so it's got to be true.
Gotcha. Wise Guys just sounds like it's going to be a comedy,
and it was.
Oh well, that makes sense.
Yeah. Brian De Palma had a comedy in 1986 called Wise Guys.
Oh, nice.
There you go. That's that. There's your solution.
Boom. All right, let's get back into it. So, after leaving his wife and just being generally pissed off at her, he decides to just go live with his girlfriend. And, Paulie and Jimmy come by and basically say, hey, your wife is over at my house pissing off my wife. You need to go home. Because that needs to stop.
That's what you do. And this is one of those scenes that I really loved because of the matter-of-fact nature of it. I believe that one of the characters here actually says, it is what it is. Which is like my favorite and also least favorite explanation of anything. Which is just saying, it's the thing it is supposed to be. And the implication there is, you know what it is. Don't make me come out and say it, that you have to kind of pay attention to your family. You can have this stuff on the side. Everybody knows that. But come on now, Henry. You know. It is what it is, right? You know it. Come on. You know what you're doing here.
Do you know, actually, it is what it is a Hell's Angel and a motorcycle gang ism that
that's
they
where
use
it came from?
constantly. I don't know if that's where it came from, but they put it on all of their jackets and stuff. So you'll see it is what it is, but it'll be like IIWII, and that's what it means. And it's funny that you say like that's one of the phrases that bugs you, because I was just not that long ago reading a book that was done by this FBI guy that infiltrated the Hells Angels group, and they talk a lot about IIWII and how important that is to these guys, and you never talk about IIWII. So it's funny. So watch your mouth. Watch your mouth. That's all I'm saying, Yoshi. Watch your mouth.
Yoshi, you're not a made man. You can be touched.
But I mean, my point is, as an English teacher, I think about what this sentence actually means, and it means nothing. It's literally, it's so devoid of meaning. I always think of math when I think of that. And I remember the identity property, which is A equals A. It's like, yeah, no shit. And you need that for, geometry to work and stuff like that. But it's like, it is what it is. Shut up. Like, if you're going to say that, you might as well just go, because it doesn't mean anything. It's one of those hateful phrases that's meant to have depth, but it fails miserably because it's a paradoxically completely, a meaningless sentence to say. And the thing that's funny about it to me is that it's made its way into pop culture a lot through sports. Because a lot of times after a basketball game or a football game, there's this destroyed player because they put their whole life into this game. They lost the game, and there's some stupid reporter being like, in the third quarter when this happened, what were you thinking? And he's like, well, I was trying to make a play.
Went out there and gave it 110%.
I was trying to execute the coach's plan, but it didn't work out, so, it just is what it is. And it's like, okay, so if athletes are using this as a cliche to get out of answering questions when they're pissed off because they lost, it's not a valuable statement. Like that's the litmus test right there. If an athlete is saying it, like when an athlete talks about, next year we're going to come back and we're going to take it to the next level. You're like, okay, good. Take it to the next level. I can put that on my list of shit that means nothing. You're just saying that just to say something. And for someone who loves to say things just to say them, for me to not like this, it takes a lot. And so hopefully the Hells Angels...
I don't know, Yoshi. You're pretty anal retentive when it comes to using words properly and sayings that don't mean anything.
Yeah, that's true. Like, I hate it when people say I could care less, because that's the exact opposite of what they mean. They mean I couldn't care less, meaning I don't care at all, and there's no way I could possibly care less. And when someone says I could care less, you're saying, there are actually ways I could care less about this thing. So you're saying the opposite of what you fucking mean. It's awful. When people say that, I just want to smack them. Go, no.
See, I just barely said that, and then look, he's going off on a tangent.
Oh, you just barely. You almost didn't say it. Someone almost slit your throat right before you were going to say that. That's what that would literally mean to say, oh, I barely said that.
I know. That was you did that rant on the Brown Show one time. That's why I brought that up.
Kills me.
But enough about English lessons. Let's talk about this movie.
One thing that we skipped was the introduction of Debbie Mazar's character, the girlfriend, the second girlfriend, where the first girlfriend is showing him off the house, and then...
Well, she wasn't introduced as a girlfriend yet. She was just introduced as someone he wanted to boom.
Yeah, he gives her that little look.
Right. Her character's introduced in that scene. So they're in the bedroom, and Ray Liotta tackles his girlfriend on the bed, and then she gets up and leaves, and he gets up, and then in this almost animalistic fashion, starts to stalk the other girl, Debbie Mazar's character, and it's so viscerally sexual. It's a really well done scene. And then she actually, apparently, when she turns around and tries to walk away, she tripped over the dolly's cable for the film crew. And Martin Scorsese just loved the fact that she trips, because it looks like she's just so taken by Ray Liotta's character, and
overpowered by the Sex Panther.
Great, just great.
It's actually made with bits of real panther.
65% of the time, it works every time.
I've heard that.
That doesn't make sense.
Are we just quoting Will Ferrell now? Is that what we're doing?
What? You gotta admit it. If we said animalistic, and I'm like Sex Panther.
I never said animalistic.
It's a natural flow.
Did you not say animalistic?
He's making fun of the added syllable you put in there, but no, let's keep going.
Well, it's okay. Last week he said homophobia. So I will not be besmirched by a man who says homophobia.
Plus you said besmirched, so you're pretty cool for that.
That's a phobia of homies.
Or homeopathic medicine, I don't know, one of the two.
Yeah. That don't work.
All right, so Polly sends Henry and Jimmy down to Tampa to collect some money, and they beat the crap out of some dude and put a pistol in his face and pay the money. Where's the money? Give us the money. And then they don't want to give it up, so they take him and threaten to feed him to the lions. Okay, I'll pay. And I love Ray Liotta's line. He's like, well, apparently down here they feed people to lions.
Yeah. Well, this whole sequence is something that in when you're looking at, I'm going to turn an autobiography into a film, this is a nightmare scenario where a major plot point of the movie where he's going to go to jail happens out of context of everything else of the plot of the movie. So them going to Florida and meeting some character that they feed to the lions, and his sister happens to be, in the somehow or another tied to lawyers or a judge, and it's really...
No, it says she was a typist for the FBI.
So it's really out there. It is a nightmare for the screenwriter, but the way that it flows so naturally, and yeah, he's going down there because he had problems with his girlfriend and whatever, even though this is all compressed and several years worth of time frame compressed by the screenwriter, you never even notice any of that, and it just happens really well, and then you're in jail and you're back into the main plot. So I'd just like to point out that this movie is a great example of a screenwriter being able to take a nightmare scenario autobiography of way too much stuff happening and condense it into a film and do it to where nobody complains about that. There's nobody saying, what happened here? Why is that character here? No, it's all fun to watch, and it all flows really, really well.
So they come back, they get arrested, they go to jail, and apparently Paulie's in jail. They didn't tell you that, but he's there for contempt of court. I didn't know you could go to prison for contempt. I knew you could go to jail for contempt. But apparently if you're a good fella, being in prison ain't so bad. it looks like you can sort of come and go from your room as you want, and it's not a cell. It's like a big room with cots in it, and you can have steak and stuff, and
yeah, it's sweet. I want to live there.
And booze.
This really feels. This kind of goes back to the beginning of the movie where we were talking about how it's a family.
Yeah.
And it couldn't be more intense here. That they're a family. They are absolutely. It's like a family unit that's in here. And Ray Liotta is also at this point getting into the drug thing. And always, every drug story told just about starts with the slow introduction that then becomes pronounced. And we need a little bit of time to get used to the idea. And it does it well here, where they just introduce the fact that he's going off and he's doing drugs here in the prison. But it's not a major deal. He's just starting to get into it.
And you're not even surprised. I mean, this is not like a thing where you're like, oh my gosh, he's starting to do drugs. It's like, okay, of course. Like, why haven't we seen this earlier?
And he never once paid for drugs. Not once. The little prison like visit room, it has a lot of weird shit in the 70s. Like, there's one dude getting a blowjob, and then someone changing a baby like 2 people down from him, and that's freaky.
It's chaotic indeed. Yeah.
I don't know if that's how it really is up in New York, but damn, that's hectic for a room that is filled with both conjugal visits and duty diapers.
Well, I have all kinds of weird fantasies about what jail's like, so I don't even want to get into it.
Yeah, you might have a thought about what prison's like. It's not that way for a wise guy.
I read something recently, which I have no idea whether it is true or not, about the prison culture, which makes me laugh at my students, is that the reason why the wearing your pants low thing came into effect came out of the prison culture. And the whole thing was that if you were willing to be somebody's quote-unquote bitch, the way that you would signify that to other inmates was by wearing your pants low.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Really?
And to me, I love that. I hope that that's true, because the people who wear their pants low that I know are totally not going to jail, and they're not gangsters, and they just are wannabes, basically. And if they actually knew that that was the origin of it, that they were willing to take it, basically, and then this is something they wear as a badge of honor around, like, oh, look, you can see my boxers, how cool am I really hope that's true. I mean, that's one of those urban legends, but I don't know. Because if that's how it started, it's so funny, because it's totally the opposite of what people who wear their pants like that are trying to project, which is, oh, I'm a badass. I don't play by society's rules. The real thing that it meant was that I am willing to accept anal sex for protection.
And give blowjobs.
Yes, right, exactly. And be called Nancy. Whatever.
How much toilet wine do you want? This much. You can make sangria in the toilet, but it's shank or be shanked.
Anyway, sorry, that was tangential. Big
Shocker.
shock, I know, right.
So there are more problems in paradise as his wife comes to visit with the children, and she sees that his hoe came to see him in prison. And she gets pissy and makes a scene, and he's like... And she's mad because she's poor, and she's smuggling in salami.
She starts throwing all this contraband out there, and he's like, put that away, what are you doing?
Trying to get me killed? And then he talks to her, and he talks her down. Apparently he's real good at smooth talking his wife, which he should be. It's just me and you, nobody's going to help us out. And then bam, 4 years later he gets out of prison, and apparently everything's all good again. And he goes to Paulie's house. Paulie's really happy to see him, and he's like, I don't want to die in prison. So, stop selling drugs. And then Henry keeps selling drugs with the help of his new girlfriend, Sandy.
And the housekeeper or something, or the babysitter? Who's that chick? Who's like, is that her?
No, he gets her to move the stuff for him. He gets Sandy to.
Oh right, yeah.
We're talking about his girlfriend. Yeah.
Sorry. I'm getting a little ahead.
To add in the what's it called? Baking soda or whatever it is you kids put in Coke these days.
You kids. We're older than you, Dave.
Well, I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to the people out there in the internets.
I heard they put baby laxative in it. That's.
Well, that sounds fun.
Yeah, that's what.
Because if I could totally get high and then my pants, oh yeah.
I've worked in health food stores for years, and one of the things that junkies always buy at health food stores is inositol.
What does that do?
Well, they cut it. It's just a white powder that's a vitamin, but you cut it with.
Okay, I was like, I don't know what that is, but what is that? I know.
There you go.
Wow. Okay, so the laxative that I put in my daughter's milk in the morning is like pure white.
I've heard they do that they use that in Coke too, but that's not inositol. That's
well, now that doesn't surprise me because that's what I put in my daughter's, not cocaine, of course, but I put that laxative in my daughter's, her milk in the morning a lot of times. And yeah, that would work, I guess, I mean, I suppose it depends on who you're dealing with. I'm sure there are people out there that could tell, this is not pure or whatever, but gosh, if you get to that point. It's shocking that you haven't even functioning neurons left at that point. So
this ain't pure. What you cut this with? Baking soda? I need the real stuff.
This tastes like baby laxative to me.
I don't want to myself. I want to get high. just give me a bottle of piss that you just... I'll drink it.
You throw it on the street.
I want some truck of piss now.
Oh, that's for the old school listeners.
Yeah, long-time listeners. Shout out for you.
Dude, that was like a couple weeks ago.
That's a long time ago, motherfucker.
That was back in our old days. We're BRB now.
That was a totally unnecessary motherfucker that you're going to have to now bleep.
Yeah, that was.
And now you're going to have to bleep the motherfucker that I just said, and now this one as well.
There's another one.
Sorry. Sorry, dude.
Big Black Hawk. Sorry. Okay.
Oh, and I would like to say, if you would like to grab all those old episodes, they are on BigRedBarel.com. Just go to one of our podcast posts and click, or go to the podcast page and click on the... I believe if you click on the logo, it'll take you all our past episodes, and one of them says previously on or Big Red Flix, and it has a link, a hyperlink to all of the old episodes. You just right-click on it and download the MP3, and then boom.
Yeah.
You should do it because I spent 25 hours talking about Star Wars.
Dude, I spent an hour making those links, so go click on it.
I also recommend checking out one of our early episodes, the Street Fighter episode, which I still think is a good one that we did.
It was good, and the bonus content was amazing.
Yeah, there's some fun. Yeah, I mean, everything we do is kind of golden, so, pick any one and you'll be impressed, but that one's good. Of course, the Phantom Menace one is wonderful too, just because there's like an hour-long debate over the water core of Naboo. So,
yeah,
if you're into that sort of thing,
It's funny that's kind of become a meme amongst the fans of the show, like the planet core.
Oh, I know. The Naboobian planet core is the best thing that's come out of the show so far. I swear to God, it's one of my favorite.
I thought George Lucas retiring was the best thing that's come out of the show so far.
Yeah, we did that to him. We pushed him with all our hate. See, I told you guys you're hating too much. You guys pushed Lucas out. You monsters. He's got to eat. George got to eat. Sorry. All right, let's keep going with this.
George looks like he's starving.
This is a better movie, anyways.
Henry goes back to Karen's place, and it's a bit modest. And Henry don't like that. Henry liked to roll big.
Yeah.
Cars real big, house real big, everything real big.
Pack your things, Karen. We're leaving.
Yeah. And then he gets a new place, and it's pimping. And then next, they're at the bar talking about the Lufthansa job. And it's big. It's going to be huge. And Samuel L. Jackson's going to be there.
I know. What a shock. What a shock for me to see Samuel L. Jackson here. Like, whoa. Like, this does not fit.
This was very early on in his career.
Yeah, this does not fit my timeline of when Sam Jackson should be in movies. I'm like seeing a youngish looking De Niro and Pesci, and I'm like, what? No, Sam Jackson? He hasn't entered the scene yet, has he? Okay, I guess so. Fine, whatever. Like,
well, this was 1990, so I think he really hit it big in the 93 to 95 is when he first started
because a few years, like 94 I think is when Jurassic Park came out, and he was in that. That was like one of his first memorable roles that I remember.
That's because you're not a Spike Lee fan.
Right, I know. I knew you were going to say something about that, but the thing is, that's the first movie that I remember like Sam Jackson being in, saying, hold on to your butts, that whole thing. So it was seeing him here, I was like, wait, what? Sam Jackson's in this movie? Okay. I guess he really is in it, everything, like that's the modern day joke about Sam Jackson, is he'll be in anything, and like here he is just kind of tangentially in a I need to stop saying that word, but in a Goodfellas movie, just kind of by accident almost. So
it was on purpose.
Oh yeah, because Scorsese was like, this guy's gonna be big.
No.
This former crackhead's gonna be huge. I gotta get him in my movie.
Yep. And then there's more talk of Henry selling the drugs, and then the Lufthansa heist goes through and everyone's rich. Woohoo! Ray Liotta's in the shower, being happy. Very happy. So then everybody has a party at a bar, And some guy rolls up in a brand new pink Cadillac. What are you doing? I told you not to spend any money.
Yeah.
I said, don't buy anything for a while, and you come buy this? Try to paint a target on us?
Jimmy, up to this point, has always been this almost side character.
Yeah, quiet.
He's always there. He's always in it. But this is where we first get...
he's the boss.
Him being a big part of it. Yeah, he's kind of running this whole thing.
Yeah.
And he was introduced to this whole Lufthansa heist, but he's the one who handled it. And now suddenly he almost, in a way, takes on like the Paulie role here, where he's in charge, and now he's the menacing character. And I think we, throughout this, have been introduced to Tommy as the menacing character, but now Jimmy sort of starts to take on that note.
Well, I kind of like, I don't want to say I predicted this, but I felt it coming the entire movie. Because it's like, he's the quiet one, he's the one who likes to fucking kill people and, steal shit. Like, they introduce him that way, and then he's just this kind of silent menace. And a few times, like when we see him choke out his friend, earlier on we were talking about that scene, like he's just, you just know you don't want to fuck with him. And when he starts like actually saying things, you're like, oh no, you shouldn't have woken that giant, you're in trouble now. It's like, no, not good.
Well, yeah, I think what Jimmy represents here and what Tommy represents the chaotic, evil nature of the mob, to where you can't predict where his anger is going to go. It's just nuts, and you're going to deal with these kind of characters. Jimmy, on the other hand, is the much more nefarious character, to where I love you, you f*** with me,
I'll pop ya.
You not even if you f*** with me, if you cost me $1, if you're going to end up costing me money for some reason, and I would benefit monetarily from killing you, you're dead.
Yeah.
And it's so much more vicious and nasty than anything Tommy.
Well, it's because it's hidden and it's insidious. You don't know it's there, and it's like the fact that he's the quiet one should worry everyone. Like, this is obviously as old as stereotypes get, is the whole idea of the quiet one is the one you need to be afraid of. And it's like, this is when you start feeling that big time. And if it's building the whole movie, though, you're going, De Niro is not a guy you're going to f*** with. And then once he gets some power, And
I would say at this point, he's not whacking anybody. He has people whacked at this point, because he's gotten to that point where he's
kind of above it. Yeah.
So it's like, he doesn't, at the beginning they talk about how he has no problem whacking people, but you don't actually, with the exception of him, like, putting bullets into that guy that I'm pretty sure was already dead, you don't really see him shoot people or anything like that.
Yeah. And one thing that people should notice when they watch this movie again is that Jimmy is the other character in this movie that Scorsese uses the fast cuts to, where the camera zooms in on his face. It's Jimmy and it's Henry Hill that he uses that with, and not very many other characters, and I think that's absolutely on purpose.
Jimmy's actually the one that stuck out for me the most.
Once we get here later in the movie, it's him that's providing the tension for Henry Hill.
Yeah.
So I think that's absolutely deliberate that he did it that way. And so here we are later in the movie, and now we're being introduced to Jimmy's the one that you need to watch out for. He's the real danger. And not only is he, once we get to it, not only is he the real danger for Henry Hill, but for his wife.
Oh, God, that scene. I know which scene you're talking about already. And, that scene, like, like I said, I watched this movie with my wife, and she's seen this movie several times before. And I could tell, just sitting next to her, that her level of tension is growing in this scene where he's going, no, just keep going down to that next place, even though she knows she's not going to go in there. It's such a well-made scene that you're going, oh, God, don't, Karen, no, don't. Don't listen to this guy. Just go ahead, go in there. You'll get your head blown off, but don't worry about it. No big deal. Forget about it. Like, it's what a menacing scene. Just totally chilling to the bone.
So before the Lufthansa heist, apparently Maury had a big some big part to do with it, some plan or something like that, and he keeps asking for an advance, and he's being a little pushy about it, and Jimmy doesn't want to hear that. Jimmy seems like he's tolerating it, and then it happens, and Jimmy sees people going out and spending money, like, hey, you're a poor guy, but hey, you just went and bought your wife a brand new fur coat, and you just went and bought your wife a brand new caddy, and people are being really stupid with their money, and then Maury keeps bugging him. He's like, I want my money, give me my money, and Henry's really trying to say, you know what, you really need to relax. Just relax. You'll get your money. It's okay. Because apparently it's $500,000, and Cha-ching! Who doesn't want a piece of that action?
Which goes right to Jitterbug's point about the menacing nature of Jimmy at this point, and where it's like Henry's trying to protect Maury from Jimmy, and Maury's just not getting it. It's almost harkens back to the scene with the restaurant owner who's like, well, you could just whack Tommy for me, and he's like, no, you don't say that, you don't suggest that. It seems like Maury is overstepping his bounds here, and Henry's trying to be like, dude, don't do that, you don't want to end up dead, right? So just lay back, you'll get your money.
Next, Samuel L. Jackson gets whacked by Tommy because he didn't get rid of the truck that they robbed the Lufthansa people with.
This is my favorite killing of the movie. Just because I think Stax represents just a completely innocent character.
Because it's almost like he didn't have any idea.
Yeah, he kind of wakes up and he's like, yeah, where's your bitches? Oh, I thought they were still in here. They in here? In here? And it just, he feels like a regular guy, and he just kind of got mixed up in this whole deal, and suddenly, boom, he's dead. And it sets off that chain reaction of, from now we're going to see the most deaths we've seen the entire movie. This is, from this point on, it's intense how many people start getting whacked, and then we get into the montage, and I don't know why, but for some reason this murder over all of them feels the most intense to me. And
I think it's because it's the bloodiest.
Yeah, it's definitely the bloodiest.
That blood goes everywhere.
Oddly, it also contains one of the things that has always driven me crazy about movies, in which you put a silencer on the gun and suddenly it makes a noise when they shoot somebody. That's not how a silenced gun sounds. A silenced gun sounds just as loud as a regular gun, just about. It just doesn't go as far. So if you're in a room with a silenced gun, it sounds like a gun went off. But that's one of the minor little problems I've always had with any kind of gun movie.
I don't know anything about guns, so it doesn't bother me. And I'm
liberal.
I choose to ignore your knowledge about guns. I didn't hear what you just said. What is it? Silencers? Who cares?
There's no Santa Claus? I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, I know. I'm the same way. I just put my head in the sand.
Then after that, they realize that Tommy's going to get made. He's going to become a made man, and he can only become a made man because he is true Italian, and everybody else is half Irish.
Some real greaseball.
Yeah.
And I never for a second thought that Tommy was going to become a made man here. Like, I was not surprised by what happened.
I did. I was absolutely, when I first saw this movie, I was blown away by that
because,
scene.
it's like, hey, why not? Hey, forget about it. But before that happens, Henry finally gets Maury to back off and just relax. And so they're sitting around playing cards, having a good time. And, right before that, he's having a conversation with Jimmy, and Jimmy's like, Maury talks too much. And then there's that, the movie stops, and then he's like, and that was when I realized that Maury was going to get whacked.
Yeah.
It does that twice, and it's really just, because everything stops. There's no sound, the video stops, and everything.
Yeah, it's chilling.
I think, okay, here's something, and maybe this comes more from my knowledge that Henry Hill cared so much about that character. I do kind of wish that we'd been given a Maury and Henry Hill scene to where the two of them were together
being
having
buddies?
a good time just for a second. And it would have made his death mean more, because it doesn't mean shit to me in the movie, In
the focus of the movie, it's even Joe Pesci says it after they do it. Like, he jabs him in the back of the skull with that screwdriver or ice pick or whatever it is. It's like, I thought he'd never shut the up. And that's the way I felt. It's like, Maury was just an annoying character. He sold hair pieces for a living. He welched on his bets, and he bugged the shit out of Jimmy. So when he died, I was just like, good riddance.
And I think the movie might have benefited from just a quick scene, because apparently Maury's shop, the way they knew him was Maury's shop was right next door to Henry's bar.
Yeah.
And so they just got to know each other. So if there had been one scene where the two of them got together and maybe you got the point that Maury was a good guy and they liked each other, maybe I could humanize him a little bit more, because his death means nothing to me. I feel the same way as Tommy, where it's like, shut the up, it's annoying.
And then after that, Layla.
Yeah.
You get the montage of the Lufthansa crew winding up dead, like the dude who bought the car is in the car with his wife. I think they're both shot. A couple other guys are found in a garbage dumpster. Another guy's in a meat truck. It took them 2 days to thaw him out.
Here's an interesting thing about this, as we talk about, this unleashes the barrage of deaths. I was just reading on the trivia page on IMDb that the body count for this movie total is 10.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
it feels like a lot more than that, doesn't it? But at the same time, I feel like that's probably accurate. That if I went through the movie and counted, that they were right. There was only 10. But it feels like more than that, right? I mean, don't you feel like people are being killed all over the place in this movie, and then they're actually not?
It is pretty spread out, and then it crescendos, if you will, at the end of the movie.
Right here, yeah.
Next, we see Tommy getting taken to get made, and then he gets made dead.
Yeah.
Interesting thing here, they say in the movie that they shot him in the face so his mother couldn't have an open casket. Actually, they never found his body.
That he just disappeared, right? Wasn't that the thing?
He's probably in a hole in the ground with some lye on it.
They knew what happened to him. There's no question about what happened to him. I think they even had that come out in the court case. I think that's the truth. But they never found his body. Sitting somewhere with lye on him, I bet.
Yep, I said that. Nobody listens to me. Next, 1980.
Yeah, okay, so here, this is what I was leading up to. That whole time I was talking about the camera shots. Once 1980 hits the screen, it's all that camera shot. I mean, you're seeing constant zooms. And this is something that hit me not that long ago when I was watching this movie, where it was like, wow, the cinematography changes. And I know that you start shaking the camera around and you zoom in a lot, and it gives the impression of hectic. You know, that's what you get across when that starts happening.
Well, the paranoia of it's right along with the cocaine. It's like,
right.
Wow, how perfectly matched.
Not only is he using a great camera technique, and the camera gives you part of the story, he's been setting this up the whole movie. Because when the camera does that, it means there's tension. And that's now ingrained in your mind subliminally. So as soon as the 1980 hits and they start using those camera things, there's no question that there's a lot of tension going on. For whatever reason, this is an incredibly tense moment. Even when they're even zooming the camera in on the pasta that he's making.
Yeah.
And it's because and when you're listening to Henry Hill talking about it, he is freaked out about everything. And of course it ties in with the drugs, but the cinematography is so well done in that point. And the fact that they use that the whole movie just to set up this part is great.
And I'm so glad you mentioned the pasta thing, because this is one of my favorite details about the movie. And I actually ended up talking about this movie a lot with my coworkers, one of whom is an Italian American who's very much into the culture, like understands it. He has relatives that probably have known people like this and been into this sort of shit. And I was telling him, like, it's so fascinating how, he's trying to go around town, do all this drug, gun stuff, and meanwhile he's so worried about the sauce. And my friend said,
"Hey, tell him don't forget to stir the sauce. Don't let it stick."
And my friend is basically saying, well, yeah, I mean, that might seem mundane to you, but if you're Italian, that's not mundane. That's just as important as, making your drug deal or whatever it is. It's like, that sauce is important. And that's like very emblematic of how the whole culture is all mixed together, and that wonderful contrast of these things that we cannot possibly understand, and then just something so basic that we've all done is, make pasta. It's like, but they take it seriously, like,
oh yeah,
it just, to me, it keeps humanizing someone who I should no longer care about Henry Hill at this point. They hate him to death, but I don't want him to get caught. I don't want the helicopter to get him. I don't care. It's like the whole paranoia of this scene. I feel it too. I'm like, no, Henry, don't go there. Don't do that. You're gonna get caught. And when she's flushing all the stuff down and sticking the gun in her, where her vagina is, it's just like, holy shit.
Sticking the gun where her vagina is?
Yeah, right there, right in front of the vagina. It's just, oh my God. It's supposed to be tense, and it is tense.
I really love the, when he... he does his running around and stuff, and then he goes to pick up the coke, and then he goes to Sandra's to get it cut, and he does that quick hit, and then the music switches to like sort of like that. I don't know. Is it like sort of like a blues groove or something like that?
I don't remember.
Yeah, it's exemplifying the change that the drugs has on him. Yeah,
and I thought that was really cool. And, then there's just this whole, like, paranoia thing he has during the whole time. He keeps looking at the sky. He's making the pasta, and he's like, hold on a second. He walks outside, looks around, and stuff like that. And I thought that was really cool. And then, you think, okay, maybe nothing's going to happen. Because, he keeps pointing out, oh, there's a helicopter. It's following me. Hey, do you see that helicopter up there? It's following me. See it? It's been there all day. I've following me around. I've done this, done that. And he does all these things, like he drops off guns, goes to pick up guns, and things like that. And then you think, okay, well, he's just going to go take his babysitter to get her lucky hat so she can go to the airport, and then, freeze, motherfucker! Don't move! I'll kill you.
Yeah.
Then, boom.
Stupid lucky hat. Ruins everything.
Yeah, 'cause that was the problem.
Yeah,
that was the one
No,
thing.
that was the one thing. You couldn't control that variable. The quirky girl who wants her fucking hat. She's like the original Zooey Deschanel. Like, to get this fucking quirky hat out of here. Just go to the airport and do your job, bitch.
Damn.
Or I'll pistol whip you.
Yeah!
Punch
you in the face.
I'm starting to get into the mood here. I'm starting to feel like I might be able to hang in this mob life, guys.
Yoshi's going to get made
into a teacher.
Yeah.
He's not exactly the prime candidate for a mobster.
It's the perfect cover.
So I got f***ing Irish descent, too. I'm a worthless piece of shit.
You know, there's an Irish mafia.
It's not the real one, though. We all know the Italian one is the real one.
Okay, fine then. So he gets out on bail, and he goes home. Where's the Coke? I flushed it. That was $60K worth of Coke. That's a lot of Coke. In 1980. So it's probably like double that now.
Oh, it's got to be more than double that. I think inflation on everything has gone up more than double in 30 years.
Fine. He spent the...
That was a douchebag comment. I apologize, Dave.
You know, I don't mean to be, Yoshi, you know more about the drug trade than I do. Evidently, you have more experience as a drug mule than I.
Let's just say I've had a few things in places I didn't want to have them.
Condoms full of Coke.
Like a gun in your vagina.
Oh, yeah, my good old vagina.
Yeah. So Henry gets out on bail. And, I said that already.
Actually, he gets out on bail because his mother-in-law put up their house for bail.
Right.
Yep. Collateral.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then he comes home, and I really love the scene between him and Karen where the Coke is gone, and he's complaining, and her dumping it was completely reasonable, but just his depression over it, it's all very real, and her, that's a really well done scene. Their acting there is great.
This is the only time we see Henry Hill break down like this. It's
pretty much.
It's like,
well, I don't know, he kind of breaks down in front of Paulie in the next scene when he's like, I am so sorry.
Yeah, he gets $3,000.
A little bit, but it's like the desperation is there, but it's not so poignant as in this scene where you're like, oh wow, this tough guy who the entire movie seemed in control of his destiny is just weeping on the floor. Like, wow, that's the bottom. Like, literally speaking, he's on the ground and he's crying.
Power bottom.
Yeah, well, not that kind of bottom, but
Oh, sorry.
I know where your mind goes.
Yeah, it's very literal. He collapses and reaches his bottom.
Yeah, yeah. So,
yep. And Paulie's like, I'm gonna have to turn my back on you now.
This is the one part where I think that, like Yoshi, you were talking about, well, how much do we trust it because it's coming from the mouth of the guy, this guy. This is the one scene where that one hits me, where it's like, did Paulie do this? Because it feels like it's only here to make his turn against the family more acceptable.
Yeah, because it's like Paulie turns his back on him, and after all the money he's made for Paulie gives him $3,000 and says, now we're not cool anymore.
It kind of feels like that's why that's here, even though, like I said, it's ridiculous to say that we have to have justification for him turning on these horrible people.
Right.
But yeah, we've spent the whole movie learning to love these people.
The idea is he's a snitch or whatever, too.
Yeah.
Very prevalent in our culture. Sorry.
Next, Karen goes to see Jimmy. They have a little back and forth, and Jimmy's very interested, which they brought up in a previous chat between Karen and Henry. He's really interested about what the cops are asking Henry, and she's like, I don't know. And then he's like, hey, would you like a nice dress? I got some really nice dresses. Just go down to the shop on the corner. And she slowly walks, and it's this really shady part of town with a bunch of boarded up windows. Oh yeah, it's right down there in the corner. And then she walks like right next to the corner, and she sees a couple of shadowy figures doing some shady things inside of a...
Yeah, well, they're talking, and then as soon as they see her, they shh, and they look at her, and it's creepy. It's
that whole scene is so tense. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And De Niro's back there going, oh yeah, go on, it's right down there.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, of course De Niro's great, and the scene's great, and it becomes really, when you're talking about this movie, it becomes just cliche to constantly say that was great and this is great and that person was great, but it is, the whole damn movie is so good, and this is another scene that is just so well done, and it's so tense, and then she gets into her car as the camera's on, moving up to show the whole street, and she's running to her car to get in. No, I gotta go,
I'll come back later.
Just really well done, and I think that if you're really going to delve into cinematography, you could really jump into how there's not that many dolly shots in this, and yet here's one where it's showing the street, and it's a dilapidated part of town, and there's Jimmy standing on the side. There's a lot to be said about what the story the camera's telling you, and you don't even realize it's telling it to you. About how everything's falling apart here, and oh god, I love this movie.
Next, you get the scene where Henry and Jimmy meet in the diner. He's like, I showed up 15 minutes early to case out the place, and Jimmy was already there.
So, and this is I'm going to jump on my cinematography bandwagon. This is a really important cinematography scene here, because I was saying earlier how Scorsese breaks certain rules here and there. This is another place where he breaks a rule, and it's very subtle, but watch this scene, and you'll see in the background, behind the window where they're sitting at the table, as they're talking, the viewpoint shifts. So the things that are outside start to come in on you very slowly, and it's as if the outside doesn't exist in the same world as the inside, and everything's closing in on Henry Hill. And it's something that, why is that happening? Is he in a drug craze here? What is the filmmaker trying to get across here? All he's trying to get across is that the world is closing in on Henry Hill. It's again, Martin Scorsese's breaking the rules to dramatic and fantastic effect, and it works, and it's now become one of the most famous cinematography scenes out there.
This is what you say about all forms of art, though, is that if you master the rules, that's when you get to break them. It's like, students that want to write these weird poems that don't follow any of the rules of what you should do. It's like, you can't do that yet. You haven't written anything yet. You have to learn, and then you can break them, and that's Scorsese. It's like he knows what he's doing. He's not doing this just arbitrarily do something different. It's like, this has a purpose. The reason why he breaks this rule is for a reason. Normally, you see these establishing shots at the beginning of a scene, and that's it. So it absolutely it's jarring, and you're like, what's going on? But it does give you that feeling of, again, the paranoia and the anxiety of these last, half hour of the movie. It's just filled with paranoia and anxiety.
Well, and whenever the camera zooms in on something, what does it mean? It means tension. So what's going on here? It's just a shot. It's a blank shot of a table with two people sitting there talking to one another. Yet, without the camera zooming in, the camera zooms in with what's happening in the background. It's tension. It's this underlying tension that the scene is giving off. And it's, we rail on George Lucas about how he puts people in a scene and they stand there and they talk to each other. It's point, counterpoint, and they walk to a couch. And, the camera does nothing, the scene does nothing to tell the story. Well, here's an example of a director that uses everything. Not only does the camera tell the story, but the scenery in the background is telling part of the story. And this is what movies are about. This is why I go to see a movie.
You just haven't looked closely at all the CGI Coruscant stuff in the background.
Shut your face.
There's a bunch of stuff on Coruscant that's deeply symbolic of the.
There's stuff coming out of your cake hole, and it needs to not be.
Yeah, no, I agree, because we're getting close to the end here, and I want Jitterbug's take on something very near the end. So,
okay, fine. And again, after the scene, Jimmy starts talking about snitches and, people snitching on other people. And then he tells Henry he wants him to go down to Florida with somebody to take care of something. Then pop, it freezes again. He's like, and this is when I knew I would not be coming back from Florida.
Right.
And so he decides to go state's evidence. And he's sitting there, him and Karen are sitting there talking to the district attorney or whoever it is, and she's like, so what about my parents? Would I be able to talk to them? He's like,
talk to them. I love how matter of fact this guy is too. He's like, what are you f***ing thinking? Like, he's totally like, you really don't have any other choice. You're gonna die if you go out. You know that, right? Like, you're not an idiot. You're not innocent in this stuff, honey, either.
Yeah, I loved his, she's like, you just need him, right? He's like, yeah, I don't need you.
Yeah, I know.
Like, he's very upfront about that. He's like, I don't give a about you, but if it makes him happy, then I care.
Yeah, I don't care if you get killed by the mob, basically is what he says to her, which I love. And so
So bam, then he turns state's evidence. And then there's a bit of voiceover over the scenes in the courtroom where Paul Sorvino and Robert De Niro are looking pissed.
And then the fourth wall is broken, and Jitterbug, why is this acceptable in this film?
Okay, so for anyone that doesn't know, the fourth wall is where if a character in a movie directly references the
Ferris
camera.
Bueller's Day Off, just think that.
Or Boba Fett. Whenever a character is looking or speaking directly to the audience, that's called breaking the fourth wall, and it's a big no-no. You don't do it. Whenever you do it, it's almost always
comic effect too. It's got to be for like in Wayne's World,
like an airplane. They use it in Airplane, Spaceballs. Yeah, Wayne's World, and you do it for comedic effect, or you do it specifically to take a person out of the movie. Those are the only two reasons that you should ever do breaking down the fourth wall. And the reason that he uses it here at the end of the movie is to take you out of the movie. Absolutely, that's why he does it. So here's the thing about it. How would you end this film? The natural way to do it would be to go into a black screen with text or with Henry Hill giving you a voiceover about, I went into the protection program and that's how my life ended. That's where I'm at today. That's the way you would do it. So this being a true story, we've spent the entire movie inside of Henry Hill's head, and we've become complacent with this being a movie. And when you're ending this film about this, what really happened, and that this was all true, what you just saw is the true world. This actually happened to real people. How do I get that across to you? Do I throw a black screen up with some white text that says that Henry Hill spent time in wherever in this, and such went to jail, and this person went to jail? Or what if the character says to you himself, you know this was real, right? This really happened. You know, this you were watching a movie. This was all true. And almost every filmmaker out there would have understandably gone for the court scene smash to, maybe a scene of De Niro as Jimmy in jail and text, and then Paulie in jail and text. That's what you would expect to go to. And what Scorsese does here is he just punches you in the face with, this is real. These people exist, and this all went down. And that's why it works. Now, if he had done it in the middle of a movie, no, horrible, would never have worked. Well, I mean, I say never would have worked, but Scorsese can do all kinds of that I can't believe actually does work. But that's why it works at the end of this movie, is because that's how it hits you. It hits you as suddenly Ray Liotta is an actor, and he's coming at you, and he's talking to you specifically, and the only way that you can accept that is to step back and say, wow, it's true. I was watching a movie, and this wasn't a movie. All this stuff that happened was not a movie.
And I buy that. I totally buy that explanation, by the way. I think that totally makes sense, and I actually was not bothered by it. I found it very endearing in a weird way. But I just thought, oh gosh, well, this is clearly held up as a cinema classic. It's one that Jitterbug and Dave both revere. So what do we do with this scene that breaks such a clear rule, though it doesn't feel wrong? It's like that you're not supposed to do this in a serious film, but when they do it, you don't go, oh, well, now this movie's just lost some esteem from me. I didn't feel that way at all. But I did want to hear your logical explanation of what you thought was the reason behind it for Scorsese doing it. Because I think that makes sense to me. I think the other part here, the other component is that this movie has been inside of his head, and then now visually what's happening is the changeover from this is not really in his head as much as this happened, like you said, it's based on a true story, all of that, but visually we're seeing the change from You've been hearing the backstory. Now here's him stepping right out and saying, hey, this is it. This is what happened. This is how it ended. And it's like, it's a reminder that this is the guy that's been talking to you the whole time. And as much as you want to separate the character from the real life Henry Hill or whatever, you can't completely do it. And this scene, I think, kind of fuses the two together in a way. It makes them inextricable. You can't tear them apart.
Yeah, I think the only way that I think that you could get a more effective ending, and God, am I sounding pretentious even talking about something like that, but the only way I think you could make that point, the one that this all really happened, better than what they did, would be to show the actual people, and maybe the actual murder scenes or something, but that would be so heavy-handed.
It might end up being goofy. That's what my immediate thought was that's goofy. Like, it would be like, and here are the people behind the story. Like, it's just kind of like almost so trite and ham-fisted that I can't see Scorsese doing something like that.
Yeah, that would almost feel like I'm watching the History Channel, and and it feels way too much. So I have no problem with the way that this ends, and to me, the way what I imagine in my head is Scorsese sitting down with his screenwriter and saying, "Okay, how do we end this? We can't take him to the boring ass suburbs and talk about his story there. Let's leave that to My Blue Heaven." But what do we do with the ending of this movie? Well, we want to explain that Jimmy goes to jail and this person goes to jail and this happens and this happens. Okay, so are we just going to end at the court scene and then we're going to end it with a black screen? Is that what we're going to do? What if we did this, and then they come up with this ending, and it's like, oh my God, you want to break all the rules of movie making? Let's f***ing do it, dude. Why not, Yeah, and it's great. And I would never recommend it to any other filmmaker.
Don't you ever do this, ever.
I hate to say it, I would be the editor in that room saying, guys, I don't know what you're thinking here. This is ballsy. Do you really want to do this? And Scorsese would be the guy going, it works.
Well, we got to think about it though. It's like, it's a risk, and he took it, and it worked. Because it could have been received poorly.
It goes back to what I said earlier, is that when you're working with an art form, and people want to break rules quickly in an art form, but you can't. Well, you can, but it's going to be more effective if you break the rules after you understand them and can use the guidelines yourself. It's kind of like, when you teach someone how to write a beginning, essay, kind of a basic bare bones essay, and then they start doing things that I would say, don't ever do this. I would tell a student, don't ever say this in an essay because it sounds stupid, but oh, well, you know what? Actually, you're beyond that point. That's okay. You can have your own voice here, and to break the rule here, that's okay, because it's still a good essay or whatever. And it's like, I think Scorsese's the same thing here. It's like, he did take a risk, as Dave said, I think I totally agree with that, but that he's kind of earned the right at this point in the film to do something like this, and it works because of all the things that have come before. Like you said, it couldn't come in the middle of the movie, certainly couldn't come at the beginning of the movie. This is the only time this could possibly work, and he found an isolated case. It's like, you can't have hard and fast rules about art, because if you do, then there's no possibility for innovation or for anybody to do anything new or creative, because that's breaking the cardinal rule of film. You can't do this. So a guy like Scorsese, he can do it. A guy like Lucas, no thank you.
Well, that's all the time we have for this BKR. We hope you've enjoyed this little trip we've gone on down movie lane. We'll be back next week with a normal episode of The Flix, and then followed by another movie BKR. Thanks for joining us. Come by the website, leave us some iTunes feedback. We do iTunes shoutouts, and we do that on the normal episode, not the BKRs. But leave us some iTunes love. That's how we get a little love from the rest of the internet. So show us some love. If you give us this much love, Yoshi will totally give you a blowjob. So anyways, have a good weekend.
Yeah.
You and your ears are quite welcome for the podcasting goodness that you just heard. Why not roll on over to BigRedBarel.com for more podcast, news, reviews, and videos from the biggest, reddest site on the internet, BigRedBarel.com.